Okay. Eva Erickson, I'm Ellie Wilson, the Executive Director of the Autism Society of Minnesota, here in your home state. As you and your family know, we have been cheering you on from St. Paul, our statewide headquarters, as you have progressed through the newest season of the longtime CBS hit Survivor, season 48. Eva, you are a woman of incredible talents. You're a hockey star, you're a PhD student at Brown, and you are such a noteworthy competitor. We love to see representation from an autistic woman. You truly contain multitudes, and we're just so proud that you are from Minnesota. It's been so fun to watch you for the entire season thus far, but in the most recent episode, we see you take on some pretty demanding challenges, leading to an incident in which you need a little help, a moment that I think many in our community relate to. But before we get to that, let's back up. It was amazing to see other contestants and even show host Jeff Probst share a personal connection to the autism community when you disclosed. Many people may not know this, but 1 in 36 people in the United States currently qualify for an autism diagnosis, which means almost everybody knows somebody on the spectrum. You were so wonderful on the show. You were so clear that autism is not a negative experience for you. And I just would like to start there. Tell me a little bit about how autism has impacted your life, both the challenges and the wonderful opportunities that helped you prepare for this show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the first biggest thing that I want people to gather from watching me on Survivor is that autism is a gift. And yes, it provides many challenges in my life. And we see that in the episode where, yes, I get very overstimulated sometimes and very overwhelmed. And this exhibits itself by me having what I call episodes, or people are more familiar with being called meltdowns. And these times are really hard for me. And that's but there's so many good things that are on the flip side of that, where I also have this insane drive and this intensity to go after my goals that has come from my fixations that I'm able to turn into being able to drive for success. And so while I may get really fixated on a task, a lot of times I can translate that into being like good energy towards something that I want, which has led me to have a lot of success academically, athletically, and just in my life in general. And there's other things where I often struggle with social cues, and I'm not very good at reading people, especially in groups of women. And I've had times in my life where I've been excluded from girl groups growing up where I just don't feel like I fit in, and I'm having trouble understanding when people are being passive aggressive or even on when somebody's flirting with me. I don't pick up on these things. But then I also have learned to be very just confident in myself and just always be authentically who I am, because I don't change my personality for people because I don't pick up on the social cues to change who I am. So that is one really big positive, is that I am just authentically me, and that's something that I think got me this opportunity on Survivor, is because they always say, Jeff, when he's casting people, is like, oh, we want to have authentic people, and I am authentically myself, and I'm happy to show the world who I am.
I couldn't agree more. Your authenticity totally shines through. And in my experience working at the Autism Society of Minnesota, authenticity is one of the most important strengths, not just of each individual, but of the whole autism community. This is why we were so proud of you. So let me ask, you were understandably a little hesitant to share your autism diagnosis with all competitors on the show, at least originally. When and how you share your autism diagnosis, I think, is a big part of the game, but also a big decision on behalf of every autistic person in, everyday life. How did you make the decision to decide who to disclose to? What did you consider as you made that decision?
Yeah, so in my everyday life, all the people that I'm really close with, I've had conversations with them explaining my autism. My family has been there since I was a little kid. They understand everything. My boyfriend, he knows all the signs to look for when I'm getting overstimulated, and he accepts me and helps me through these things. My close friends and teammates, they have been with me along the way, and they know what to look for. I've had these conversations many times, but when people meet me, they never expect that I'm on the autism spectrum. So it is something that I have to share. And once I share this, people know and understand me much better. And so going into Survivor, I did not want to share with everybody off the bat because autism is just one facet of who I am. I'm a lot of things, and I didn't want the first thing that people hear and see is that, like, oh, she has autism, and them jump to their own conclusions about what that means for me. And as many people know with autism, you can often struggle socially. And I know that I don't pick up on all the social cues that everyone else does. And when Survivor is such a social game, I was worried that people might take advantage of that and it'd be a lot easier for them to lie to me and deceive. But I wanted to make sure that I advocated for myself and had taken the steps that I needed in case I was put in a situation where I was overstimulated. And so that's why I decided going into the game before I met anyone that I must find one person to confide in. And immediately when I got out there, I met Joe and I knew that this was the person. And the way that he listened and understood and wanted to learn and help when I explained to him that I had autism and what this meant for me in my life, he was just so caring and understanding. And I knew I had made the right decision. And that was on day 3 or 4. And now, fast forward to when I really am put in this situation that is a big struggle for me. And he had remembered our conversation, remembered all the things I told him, and he was there to help me. And so this was something that I had been so proud of myself for advocating early on and be like, this is what could happen. This is what I need you to do. And then being so thankful that he followed through on that and was there for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We, of course, we're so proud of you, but shout out to Joe, who really did, I think, internalize the request you gave him in a way that was equally authentic, you know? So we were proud of Eva and we were also really proud of Joe. Okay, so the moment comes along. You're mid-competition. You're in a challenge that would be frustrating for anyone. You know, you could tell no matter how skilled you were, there was just a component of this particular challenge that was a little unexpected and frustrating. And in the episode, you refer to it as triggering an episode. As you said, some people refer to it as triggering a meltdown. Meltdowns are something that I think a lot of autistic people know about, but are a little scared to talk about. What was the experience like for you in the moment?
Yeah, so when these kinds of things happen to me, which they're not something that comes up often in my day-to-day life, but in situations where I get very overstimulated, where there's lots and lots of noise and there's lots of internalized pressure on myself. Like this is a stressful situation and it's all building. I get set into these loops in my head when something like this happens, where when I was working on the table maze, I'm like, why can't I do this? What's going on? Why can't I do it? What's wrong with me? Like I'm really struggling and it just builds and builds and builds and rolls. And a lot of times in life, I've learned strategies that like, okay, like when something like this is coming on, I know like I need to take a step back. I need to get grounded. That's a term that my family's always used is that like, okay, ground yourself. And I know techniques to self-regulate. But I was stuck in this situation where each player has to land a ball. I can't stop. I have to do it. And I am so fixated and driven on this task that I'm getting out of control and I can't believe I was able to actually finish it, but the second that it's over, all of these emotions, everything that's been building this whole time just comes over me and I lose it. And I call it an episode. I've never been a big fan of the term meltdown because I think so visually. And melting, I'm like, okay, you melted a snowman, you can't put it back together again. But you can come back together. And I showed that out there that I was out of control, I was ungrounded, but I was able to, when I got the help that I needed and took these steps, I was able to bring it all back together and re-enter the game. And I think just getting your brain to get out of that loop is the big thing is I had to break this loop that like, why couldn't I do it? What's wrong with me? And instead get like, okay, let's get back in the moment. Let's come down from the clouds up there and like let's continue on because you can do this.
Yeah, it was really amazing to watch. And not just in the game, Eva, but remember, there are going to be millions of people watching this incredibly popular program. What do you think is the best moment? I mean, how did it feel when you finally got a chance to tell the entire cast after they had witnessed this really powerful, vulnerable moment?
Yeah, I obviously I was of course a little nervous. Like they all just saw me in a very vulnerable situation and now this was my chance to tell everybody my story. And I've had times in the past where strangers have seen me have episodes and one that comes to mind because it's a kind of a similar situation is when I did cross country in high school. In cross country races, there's all this stimulus and it's a lot of screaming and you're pushing yourself to a limit and there's no stopping. And then when I'd cross the finish line, I would have a very similar response. I'd be screaming and I'd be ungrounded, and it was very, very hard. And the way people would look at me when that happened was so hard for me, and people didn't understand. And then they didn't want to take the time to learn and understand from me what was going on. And so my brain is thinking about times like that. But then when I looked out at everybody that was surrounding me on Survivor, many of these people I'd never even met yet. And they're on other tribes, but they're looking at me with concern and that they care and they want to understand. And as I started to explain my story and tell them that I had autism, I watched everybody's nodding along. They're tearing up. Like they really truly wanted to understand me. And I felt so lucky to be surrounded by such amazing people. And it just made me feel supported and that I really was in a safe space to tell my story.
Yeah, it seems to me they really respected you. I think they respected you as a competitor and they respected your decision to disclose to get support from Joe. You could feel the respect from everyone in the game. And I think everyone producing the show as well. It seems like there was kind of a moment where the game got set aside and we could focus on a really important story to be told. And I hope you're just so proud to be that story. So, then we see you go back, after this amazing moment with the whole cast, you return with your team, and we see even further interactions between you and your specific teammates, particularly Star. As you were sort of fully decompressed, tell us a little what it was like ongoing with your team to have that sort of support, not just in that critical moment.
Oh my gosh, they were so supportive and getting to talk about this and explain further about what my life has been like and hear their stories, and that they each of them knew people who had autism that were close to them in their life, and them sharing those stories with me meant so much and was just it made me very happy that I had shared my story. And with Star especially, this is someone who the entire time that we'd been out there since day one, we were on opposite ends of the tribe. And I had a distaste on her because she had been idol hunting for days, and I was like, "They were supposed to be a team. Why aren't we being a team?" Like, so I was not a big fan of Star, and Star was not a big fan of me because I had made some very direct comments that she interpreted as rude, where she didn't understand that I just have a very direct communication style, and I wasn't aware of her feelings. And so when she had this opportunity to understand me on a deeper level, it really opened her eyes to how my comments were not meant to be rude and that I am someone that she could connect with. And so that created this bridge between us that we were then able to come together and actually be friends for the first time in 11 days. And then this not only was a connection that was like, we're friends now, we became allies too. And that we helped further each other's games by she allowed me the opportunity to work on her idol, which gets her vote back, and then allowed me to keep it. And so this was a very instrumental connection and just shows that sharing with people that you have autism can open the door to connection in ways that you would not have expected.
Yeah, and I think it gave you even another opportunity to show your incredible strengths, like to go straight from the challenge into that conversation and solve that puzzle was just like another really inspirational moment, I think, for hopefully all autistic people that were watching. And that brings me to my last question. You may know, and I hope everyone out there knows, that April, this upcoming month, is Autism Acceptance Month. We used to call it Autism Awareness Month, but we think we can do better than awareness. We want to accept autistic people for all of their strengths and all of their value to the community. What do you want viewers to learn about the autism community now that they've seen this wonderful component of the show?
I just want them to accept autism in all of the facets that it has. There's so many different ways that autism is displayed, and I am just one example of the many stories that there are. And I feel extremely accepted by the Survivor cast, the crew, and the fans, and I hope that other people will be accepting of the people with autism in their life.
Yeah, whether you're going to be an Eva, whether you're going to be a Joe or a Star or a Jeff, right? Like we all have a role to play in what that acceptance looks like. And this was a really wonderful example to watch. Eva, thank you so much. For those watching who are part of the autism community, we want to make sure that we can sort of use this opportunity to make sure that you also feel connected, not just to the resources that you may need Whether you're the parent of an autistic kid or an autistic adult yourself, no matter how complex your disability, we want you to feel connected to resources, but most of all, to feel connected to this really beautiful, incredible community. If you need resources or if you're willing to support an amazing cause, head to www.ausm.org or run a search to see if you have another Autism Society in your area. These are wonderful organizations. We're here to help empower the kinds of connections that you modeled for us, Eva. We just thank you so much for your representation and hope that everyone really enjoys that episode.
Yeah, thank you so much.